Yes, Mr. Gumar, next person. Distinguished colleagues, if anybody has a petition against any nominee, please just drop it with me or drop it with the leader of the Senate. These are not our nominees. These are presidential nominees. And then, accompanying each nominee should actually be security report, which is not for the consumption of the public. And we cannot use a public forum like this to ask people to constitute ourselves into a court and start asking questions about petitions. But if the petitions are substantial, we'll refer to the appropriate authorities and then we'll be so advised. Yes, we'll refer it to the nominating agencies and the necessary. Noted the petitions.
And you are still tuned in to Newsday on the Arise News channel, and you've been watching the Senate screening of ministerial nominees chosen by President Bola Tinubu for confirmation. Now, this follows the screening of 14 other nominees yesterday. Those included for screening today are Dave Umahi of Ebonyi State. Earlier, he was asked to take a bow and go. Adebayo Olawale Edun of Ogun State was also screened. He was overwhelmingly affirmed. Nasser El Rufai just finished getting screened. He's from Kaduna State. Grilled intensely. Let's listen up for more screenings now on the Arise News channel.
For this exalted position. If just use a few minutes to summarize your resume, and then distinguished colleagues may wish to ask you a few questions, but if there is no question, you will take a bow. Thank you.
Distinguished President of the Senate, Your Excellency, distinguished Deputy President of the Senate, the esteemed senators, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa from Katsina State. I was born in Katsina State 60 years ago. I've had privilege of attending my primary schools in Katsina, secondary school in Kaduna, Sadana Memorial College. From there, I proceeded to Katsina College of Arts, Science and Technology, Zaria, for my IJMB. From there, I proceeded to ABU Zaria for my master's degree in architecture, and also I acquired master's degree in business administration, all in ABU Zaria, apart from the BSc also in architecture. I did my NYC in Cross River State in 1987 to 88. From there, I got a job in Katsina State after its creation. I stayed there for just 2 months in Katsina before I proceeded to Kaduna to practice architecture in an architectural firm. I worked for 6 years where I rose from pupil architect to senior architect. From there, I ventured into mortgage banking in Sahel Mortgage Bank in Kaduna. I decided to opt out and form my own architectural firm and construction company, AM Design Consults, and Jalo International Nigeria Limited. I practiced for 30 years before Mr. President appointed me to head the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria from 2017 to 2022. Currently, I am the Secretary to the State Government of Katsina State, thanks to my Governor, Dr. Duka Omarada, who appointed me 2 months ago. In Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, I did my best to ensure that we surpass all corporate indices of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. What we did, we increased contributions to the NHF, to National Housing Fund, which is the major source of funding that scheme. Within 5 years of my tenure in FMBN, I was able to generate 279 billion naira within 5 years, to which the bank could only generate 232 billion in 25 years. We were able to do that through engagement with the major stakeholders, the state governors, the labor centers, and ensure that even the informal sector were reached out to be contributors into the fund. With this funding of 279 billion within 5 years, we were able to generate a lot of mortgages for Nigerians. We disbursed over 175 billion naira as mortgages within that 5 years. We liberalize access to mortgage. We ensure that the mortgages are affordable and accessible by Nigerians. We created over 6,000 NHF mortgages and 77,575 microfinance, which is the home renovation loans. In the few years we have done, in the 5 years, we optimized our operations. We increased this NHF refunds, because when a worker retired from work, he needs to contribute. He needs to be refunded what he has contributed. I refunded over 40 billion naira to those retirees, to which the bank only refunded 10 billion naira within the 25 years of its existence. I'm also privileged to launch the 40 billion naira FMBN Mega Cities project. It's a project where we created livable communities where we have over 1,000 houses in one cluster. I was able to build 1,250 houses within that cluster before I left FMBN. Additionally, due to our dynamic leadership and reform-oriented management, which I headed, FMBN also ensure that we ensure that there is much access to mortgages by Nigerians. We reduce the equity contributions of Nigerians, which is the major constraints for accessing the mortgage. Before a Nigerian worker accesses a mortgage, he has to pay 30% of that, of any amount above 10 million naira. We reduce it to only 5%. We ensure that mortgages below 5 million are at zero equity. We created other avenues of accessing it, because even with the 5% for a loan below 5 million naira, some Nigerians could not access it. So we created the rent to own, whereby a contributor can go into the house as a tenant. He pays his rent, and that becomes a contribution towards paying the house. We ensure that we created the diaspora mortgage loans for even those living outside the country. So these are some of the things we did. We were able to achieve that through the FMBM. We ensure that we engage the services of KPMG, which is a company that will be able to develop a 5-year strategic development for us. The time I was leaving FMBN, I left 120 billion naira in the coffers of the bank after all this project we have done. Thank you, sir.
You want him to, he has finished. You want him to, okay. Let me start from this side. The civil senator, A little.
Thank you, Mr. President, sitting in the chair, my distinguished colleagues. Mohammed Adamalior is my name. I represent KB Central. Let me start by congratulating the nominee for being nominated as Minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, if confirmed by the Senate. I have a very simple question for you. I listened attentively to your list of achievements as stated here in this profile. I agree with you that a lot has been achieved, but right now we have about 15 million house deficit in the country, and there is no way we can fill in this deficit unless concerted effort is being made. With your experience, what do you think can be done in order to meet this 15 million housing deficit in the country? You have reduced equity contribution by about 5% from 30%, which is very good. But still, people that are living in rural areas, they need housing. And it is the policy of this government to provide housing to everybody as enshrined in the 1999 Constitution. What do you think can be done in order to meet this constitutional requirement? Thank you very much, Mr. President.
The Chief Senator Dangiwa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Ibrahim Dangiwa, representing Gombe North. Let me start by congratulating the nominee. The nominee is a person I happen to have met in the course of my being the governor of Gombe State. I met him when we had issues of housing, and he was going around. I would want to say that at that time, he assisted Gombe, and we did 3 schemes, totaling about 120 housing units. And we agreed to continue in that order. But some of the problems of the housing estates that were constructed in those days were the issues of how people could afford them. Very good scheme, but the purchasing power of the people is very low. So if you are given opportunity to be in charge of housing again at a higher level, how do you replicate this all across the nation to address the issues of the housing deficit? And 2, how do you make them much more affordable to our people? Because you can build the houses and they will be there and our people will not be able to afford them. I congratulate him. I know him right from ABU. He's a good man. He's a good material for this country.
The Senior Senator Dangiwa.
Thank you, Mr. President. As a chair, I'm Dangiwa Mohammed, representing Katsina South. I want to sincerely congratulate Mr. President and the nominee for nominating this humble and most responsible man we have in Katsina State. Because in political history of Katsina State, if you look at it critically, he has performed wonderfully, going by the antecedents of what is in this bio data of his commitment. And also, being the MD of Federal Mortgage Bank, he is always listening to the will and aspiration of National Assembly, because I am part of the Committee of Housing and Mortgage, and I know how he waited patiently for our chairman for more than 6 hours in the National Assembly, and is timely, and he is the first person in Katsina State, despite the fact of the situation we have in APC, to congratulate the current governor and also become the DG campaign of the APC. And considering the fact of what he has done in Federal Mortgage Bank, I believe is timely, and his nomination will give way to solve most of the problems that still remain in that regard. So I want to urge my respected colleagues to consider him and take a vote and go. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Distinguished Senator Yaradua.
Thank you, Mr. President. Sitting as chair. My name is Abdulaziz Musa Eradua. I'm representing the good people of Katsina Central. I'm from Katsina State. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, before you is Architect Ahmed Dangiwa, an accomplished architect by profession, an astute politician. And you have heard what my colleague has mentioned. In fact, he was an interim chairman during the formation of All Progressive Congress. Aside from that, the nominee has contested as a senator, and also he was a gubernatorial candidate. In fact, he was the DG campaign not only of our amiable governor, but he was the DG campaign of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu in Katsina State. Mr. President, our distinguished colleagues, I believe he will be an asset to the cabinet of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He's one man who has had a stellar career as an architect, even before thinking of going into politics. We expect him to provide solutions-driven policies and agenda in whatever ministry he's assigned to. The people of Katsina State are proud of this nomination. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, you will agree with me that the President has picked a sound man for the job of a minister. And as a former director of Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, you can see from his profile his achievements. And what interests me more in this achievement is his ability to develop a 5-year strategy plan for Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. The plan has aimed to deliver 100,000 housing units annually, and he has been able to grow the annual collection from 50 billion to 300 billion in that strategic plan. He has also expanded the customer base, targeting especially over 31 million informal contributors from the informal sector. Architect Ahmed Dangiwa's virtues of strategic leadership, financial acumen, and a people-centered approach, combined with his notable accomplishments, have undoubtedly made a substantial impact on the housing sector in Nigeria. Mr. President, my distinguished colleagues, I want to implore us to please give him a clean bill of lading, because he has all it takes to drive policies for the benefit of this country. Thank you, Mr. President. Inshallah.
Distinguished Senator Zangodara.
Thank you, Mr. President. Distinguished colleagues, I'm Nasir Hussain Zangwandora, representing Katsina North. I'm from Katsina State. Mr. President, the gentleman you see on the podium has been introduced by my other colleagues, is Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa. I just want to go over certain areas that I think we need to broaden the scope of what should have been said about him, even though his CV speaks volumes about his professional ethics, his hard work, and also the fact that he is a team player. And I would not be wrong in saying that even Mr. President saw that value in him to nominate him as a minister of the Federal Republic. Mr. President, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa contested the governorship of Katsina State under the platform of the APC. Unfortunately, Allah did not grant him victory, but that only further emboldened him to accept the defeat, work on behalf of his party by becoming the DG campaign of the Tinubu Dikkorada Campaign Organization or Campaign Council in Katsina State. Mr. President, APC was able, through the leadership of Architect Ahmed Dangiwa, was able to win the 3 senatorial seats in Katsina State and 9 out of the 15 seats in the House of Representatives, as well as 33 out of 34 seats in the State House of Assembly. I think without much further ado, a lot has been said about this gentleman, and I crave the indulgence of Mr. President and my distinguished colleagues to simply ask the nominee to take a bow and go. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator, let's put it this way. There is really nobody opposed to the nominee. So I will just, maybe from the southeast of Nigeria, just Senator Izunaso, you've been lifting your hand. Is there anything you want to add that the people from Katsina have not added? Or is Southeast ready to add something? So that we don't marginalize Southeast. And then Northwest has spoken. Southwest made the nomination. So Southeast is going to say something. Maybe North Central may add a voice.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Now that Southeast is no longer marginalized, I may have to say a few words. My name is Senator Osidis Nassau. I represent Imo West. Mr. President, let me congratulate the nominee for the wonderful job we have done at the Federal Mortgage Bank. But I have just 1 or 2 questions. In Federal Mortgage Bank, within 5 years, you were able to lift the revenue generation of NHF from 232 billion that it has in 25 years. You were able to jack it up to 279, making it an average of about 55 billion per annum. That 50 million per annum, that is a good feat. But my question is, NHF has been around for the past 25 years. The paltry sum of 2.5% that contributors make, do you think it will be able to enable somebody to own an affordable house in Nigeria? Based on the housing deficit of about 28 million housing deficit in Nigeria since 2022. We have 28 million housing deficit. Do you think that this patrol song will be able to solve the issues of housing in Nigeria? That's question number one. Number two, is NHF still relevant? If it is relevant, what are we going to do to make it more robust? Finally, I want to look at the issue of mortgage secularization that is practiced all over the world. How come you haven't thought of it? A situation where we can pool assets together to be able to enable us access interest on housing across the Federation. Don't you think that will enable us to access it better than the way we're doing it now? Thank you.
North Central, Senator Kwashiki.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my very distinguished colleagues, I wasn't ready to speak. You just called me unexpected, Mr. Chairman. Well, Mr. Chairman, my very distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Akwashiki Godia, represent Nasarawa North Senatorial District. Yes, Mr. Minister Nominee, let me use this opportunity to align myself with your brothers from Katsina, that you are a very good man, you are a nice man. And looking at your track records by the CV, you have turned around things in the Federal Mortgage Bank. And I want to believe if eventually this Senate find you worthy and confirmed you by the request of Mr. President, and I want to believe you will make things happen in the sector they will send you to. I can see from the explanation of my colleagues from your own state, both of them, the three of them, President serving Secretary to the state government. And I want to believe you are a man of integrity. And I want to request that you should speak in favor of peace, in favor of justice, sincerity of purpose, to make things work again in our fatherland, the country of our Nigeria. I want to congratulate you for this opportunity, and I wish you well by the time the Senate found you worthy and confirmed you as the Honorable Minister of the Federal Republic. Thank you very much.
From the housing sector in the South-South, Senator Benson Kobewe.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Senator Kombowe Friday Benson, representing Bayelsa Central. Your Excellency, sir, I just want to ask a simple question to the nominee. Looking at his tax clearance certificate, where it reads 2020, 2021, and 2022 tax payment. What is obtainable elsewhere, and usually what we do, is that taxes are paid as at when due. And at the bottom of every tax receipt, there is a date. And that date is always reflected at the end of the tax certificate. But here, all the 3 tax payment years are bearing one particular date. That goes to mean that he was not a taxpayer. And let him explain how he would have gotten to this point of paying all the 3 years taxes in just on the 28th of this month, 2023. Just last month, sorry, sir. On the 28th of last month, July, was when he paid all the 3 taxes. And the mortgage bank, Guru Maharaji, so to say, one that has all the experience, why will he only come here to tell us he paid all the taxes for 3 years in one day?
Well, so, if he was in the public service, I did not have need to collect his tax documents. That would not mean that his taxes were not being deducted. So if he had need to collect them based on this nomination, he can collect them even for 5 years, even for 3 years, even for 10 years. But that does not mean that they were paid that day. So I don't know. He will answer that question. But let's, the South as Adi say, North Central as Adi say, Southeast as Adi say, he will take about, but let's finish all the zones before the civil senator, if I remember, accuses us of neglecting any zone. Senator Yari, is there anything that Northwest wants to add to so that he can respond across the zones? You can go ahead, add something. Then Southwest after Senator Abiru.
Finally, thank you very much, Mr. President, as Chair. My distinguished colleagues, I remain Abdulaziz Abubakar, I represent Zamfara West. Mr. President, I am from Zamfara State. Let me first join my colleagues to congratulate the nominee and very intelligent person, which I happened to have opportunity to work with when I was governor in Zamfara State. One, be me a neighbor. All the 3 senators from Katsina State has spoken, and I from Zamfara State, when I come in and someone crack a joke that my boss is there, I said I would do bow on his behalf to ask him to go. But we are doing the things that we're supposed to do. Mr. President, nominee, my simple question is what we have undergone between us. You have built so many projects in Zamfara State when I was in charge then. But the only thing that if Almighty God has selected you to be in the Ministry of Housing, what will you do in terms of providing infrastructure to those what you are doing in putting houses for low-income earners? Number 2 question is, we have issues with the housing generally, deficit as stated by Senator Aleru. And if you go to our neighboring states, you go to Niger, you go to Senegal, Benin, they have a program which, to my take, they are supposed to come to learn from us how we're doing it. but a very excellent where you came from and where I came from, the type of houses we live, our people lives there. You know, it's not up to the standard of human being to be there. So there's a lot of things need to be done in terms of supporting, building the housing from the private sector, what you are doing. So what you intend, collaboration to do with the private sector, to give them a kind of level playing ground, not only possible servant that you have their salary you're holding, but how do you intend to do it as community? We have a little experience. I believe you have went there with the ambassador of South Korea. You have interaction on how they are doing their low-cost housing on the farmers and other business community. So what do you intend to do more? One, as I said, on infrastructure or what you already have existence now. And two, what do you intend to do on our own local people that you found at least 20, 30 in a household? If care of not taken, you will find out that there is 3 poor people with the father, with mother, and 3 or 4 children in one room. So what do we do? And we have available opportunity to improve that one. So that's my submission, Mr. Nominee. I wish you all the best. I believe you are right to be there, and your patience has brought you to where we are. I followed the suit of my 3 distinguished colleagues from Katsina State to congratulate you, and I pray Almighty God should give you the wisdom to do more on the higher level, more than what you did in the Federal Mortgage Bank. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Appreciate it.
Senator Abiru for 1 minute.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. President, sitting in as the chair, and my distinguished colleagues. I also join my colleagues in congratulating the nominee, and I also wish you well. And I've also gone through your resume, and I'm quite impressed with your accomplishments. My own question is just very simple, and it's not too far from what my colleagues had said, but I'll rather put it in another context. Is that if you look at our housing deficit in this country, as at 1991, we were about 7 million short. 2022 or 2023 is about 28 million, which is correct. Now, you have had the privilege of being in this particular industry of mortgage financing, either in the private capacity or in the public, because you are also the managing director of Federal Mortgage Bank between 2017 and 2022. So I would like you to share with us, because in part of your accomplishments, you said you achieved a provision of mortgage loans that you kind of put in place, maybe of the beneficiaries got from you or underwritten by you, just about 5,938, while renovation loans for houses, again, another 77,000. But again, the major deficit still remains. So I just like you to share with us, what are the real issues in our mortgage financing, and how best can we provide shelters for our larger population. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my distinguished colleagues. That will be my own question for now. Thank you.
The nominee, please go ahead and answer.
Your Excellency, the President of the Senate, distinguished senators here present, thank you very much for this support. I start with the question by my elder distinguished Senator Alero, discussing about the 15 million housing deficit we have in the country. This figure, it's always rising. Before the time I came to FMBN, it was 15. Before I left, it was 17. And now someone was telling me it was 18. So the actual figures are not well defined or are not well known. So when I'm given this opportunity, I think the first thing I'll do two things. One, I will have to engage the services of some data consultants who will have to establish that so that to have the exact figure. But majorly, we have to engage the Nigerian Population Commission, who they are about to conduct census for Nigeria within the next few months or to come. They are doing also the housing census. We need to rely on them. Maybe when I become the minister, I will have to engage them to ensure that they include the data capture for even the number of houses we are having in relation to the population we are having. From there, you can know what is the deficit. This is one thing which we have to do in order to establish the real deficit of housing we are having. Because we have to know that housing is vital to national and economic development of the nation. And in order to do that, it needs a lot of financing. That financing, I think we need to leverage on many things, especially the current government. We have to push for the utilization of cash reserve fund, about 5 trillion naira in the CBN. This, I think the government of Tinubu is trying to push this utilization of at least 20% of this 5 trillion naira to be dedicated, to set aside to promote long-term mortgage within 20 years. We have to also come to the National Assembly again to push for review of the PENCOM regulations to allow for leveraging some of the large fund that is in the PENCOM to be utilized in investment into the real estate or mortgage real estate. These are some of the things we have to do. But the informal sector, as you rightly said, distinguished Senator Alero, we have to know that the informal sector constitutes over 80%, almost 70% of the population of the country. And these are the people that are left behind. We have to ensure that we bring them on board to ensure that they are carried along. The major issue of accessing mortgage is directed, as questioned by Senator Dangiwa, distinguished senator, is the issue of affordability and accessibility. We have to ensure that for Nigerians to have access to mortgage, and the mortgage has to be very affordable. And in order to do that, we have created, while I was in mortgage, we have created cooperative housing development loan, where cooperative societies who knows their own income, level of income, they can design houses based on their own level, based on their own income, and then approach the Private Mortgage Bank of Nigeria for them to give them the loan to build the houses based on their own income. You can build a house of 3 million or 5 million based on your income, and someone can decide to say he wants to build a 30 million naira income. There is also leverage of the individual construction loan there in that bank. We created that individual construction loan whereby if you have a good title, you approach the bank with your title, and they give you loan to build your house incrementally over years, over a period of time. They give you 30%, then incrementally when you finish that, they give you another 30%. So that's why in order to increase housing in Nigeria, we have to focus on affordable housing. And to do that, you have to ensure that you facilitate recapitalization of Federal Mortgage of Nigeria to 500 billion naira. It's very important for Federal Mortgage of Nigeria to be recapitalized in order for any access of both the formal and informal sector to access mortgage. We have to review the laws established in those places. I once approached National Assembly during my time to review the laws, and the National Assembly graciously approved both the two bills to review the law of Federal Mortgage of Nigeria and to review the law of the National Housing Fund. It's only that we couldn't get the approval of Mr. President. He couldn't accent to it. It was turned back. So we have to lead also the reform of other agencies such as the Federal Housing Authority. Federal Housing Authority is meant to build houses for Nigerians, whether the formal or the informal. but they were left to only build houses for most of the government workers. They can collaborate with Federal Mortgage of Nigeria in order to build affordable houses across the local governments of the Federation. That one will give access to housing, even the informal, even the low and medium income earners. I received the next question from my Senator Sinazo. He's talking about how can we do to make NHF more relevant. To make National Housing Fund relevant is you have to ensure that you empower the Federal Mortgage of Nigeria to make it more to capital. A mortgage securitization with this review of this of the Pension Act, I think that we can achieve that. And the access of the 1 trillion naira from the federal cash reserve that is in the CBN, it will be able to assist us to achieve that. My distinguished Senator Ayari, you discussed about the infrastructure of some of the houses and also the urban renewal. Most of our rural areas, you'll find that they need some renewal. They need urban renewal. We can only achieve that through cooperative societies. A cluster of houses, they can decide to approach a mortgage bank to have a single-digit interest rate within themselves to access a mortgage that they can improve the setting of their environment through that. That's why we have the home renovation loan. It's a 1 million naira that is given to individuals to renovate their own houses. People who have accessed this single-digit interest loan, and they are able to not only renovate their houses, some have even built their houses. In most of the local governments from where I came from, they access that 1 million naira to buy a plot of land of 200,000, and they use 500 to 600,000 to build their own shelter, a 3-room and in a courtyard. That is what has been, that's what they have done, and many people have accessed that. The last question, which is what is the real problem of housing in the country? The real problem is that of cost of fund. Most people who want to build houses, they have to approach commercial banks in order to access fund to build these houses. So government has to ensure that they empower the government institutions that can give single digits affordable interest rates in order for people to have access to this fund. Cheap funds, at least in single digit. There is also access to land. You'll find that it's very difficult for land to get a land in some of the states, especially in the southern and central states of the Federation. In the northern states, I don't think the land is not that difficult to get. So we have to ensure that we collaborate with the stakeholders like state governors to ensure that they liberalize this access to land. For you to access CFO, it has to be fast and quick and ensure that people get access to land very quick and cheap. That's why the land registry has to be digitalized to create one-stop shop to facilitate approvals and access to land for people. The houses has to be affordable, and for you to have affordable houses, there is the need then to have a cheap fund in order to do that, at least in a single-digit interest rate. Thank you, Excellency.
Architect Dangiwa, I want to thank you for, you've spoken a lot, but actually it's actually in your area of expertise. You may go to the Federal Executive Council, and then you are given entirely a different ministry. So you must be versatile in all areas. But I think so. But just for me, taking a look at the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, are you satisfied that with the cleanliness of Abuja, the urban beautification, the darkness that pervades some of the streets in the night and causing insecurity? If you are indeed given a position of responsibility that will have to do with the beautification and urban renewal, what would you like to see as a federal capital? Because the difference between our federal capital and others is that if you look at us from space, we are dark. But if you look at other federal capitals, they are bright, like with tiny stars, because of the lightings and all that. So I hope if that kind of opportunity is given to you, you look at that area well. So I want to thank you. You don't need to answer. I'm just making an observation. Thank you so much, and you can take a bow.